It was in the news in June in 2021, and it was like a shock for us. It was like, whoa, what is this? What is PFAS? So 3 weeks on, every day I searched documents, I read studies, looked at videos about PFAS.
This is Jeroen Van Reeth, a resident of Zwijndrecht, a town near the city of Antwerp in the north of Belgium. His house is located less than a kilometre from a big chemical plant in the red zone of PFAS contamination. PFAS are synthetic, toxic chemicals that don't break down in the environment or the human body. For this reason, they're known as forever chemicals.
My girlfriend, when we had our youngest child, she had pregnancy diabetes, which is also linked to PFAS. So all these things begin to click. It's like, oh wait, we had this problem and it's linked to PFAS. Is it linked? Is it solely directed from PFAS? Nobody knows and you can't prove it. But still, it's visual that there is something wrong, yeah. I got really infuriated that this is possible. Why didn't the press pick up that a pollution of a factory that exists worldwide is not only around a factory somewhere in the United States, it's probably in all the other factories the same thing.
Warnings about PFAS pollution around the American chemical company in Zwijndrecht had emerged well before 2021. Members of the Flemish government, including Bart de Wever, the then mayor of Antwerp and now Belgium's prime minister, were informed about the problem as early as 2017, but they didn't take any action. A year later, large amounts of one type of possibly carcinogenic PFAS were discovered near the chemical plant during excavation works for a major construction project. But it wasn't until 2021 that analyses revealed the full scale of the contamination. Only then did authorities issue guidelines for Zwijndrecht residents, now at the heart of one of Europe's major PFAS hotspots. Welcome to Euronews Tech Talks, the podcast that explores the digital, technological and scientific landscape shaping Europe. I'm your host, James Thomas. In this second episode on PFAS, we travel to Zwijndrecht to understand what it means to live in an area highly contaminated by forever chemicals. We'll explore a part of Jeroen's life and hear about his efforts to make Zwijndrecht safer. And later, we'll speak with experts to explore whether it's actually possible to remediate an area affected by PFAS. It's a sunny day at the end of August, and our podcast producer, Alice Carnevali, is on a train headed to Zwijndrecht.
Ja, prima, alsjeblieft. Goedemorgen.
De volgende halte is Zwijndrecht.
The station is located right next to the town centre, formed of a charming street with a distinctly Flemish residential feel to it. Bicycles and public transport are prioritised. Baskets of colourful flowers hang from every lamppost, and just a short walk around the corner sit detached houses with luscious gardens. One such house is Jeroen's.
Hey. Hello, hi, good morning.
Hey, good morning.
Nice to meet you, Alice.
Nice to meet you. I'm Jeroen.
Should I take my shoes off?
No.
Okay.
The house is filled with light, streaming through a huge window overlooking the rear garden. It's a cosy place where Jeroen, his partner, and their daughters have built their home.
We built this house ourselves. We bought a plot of land and we came here 12 years ago. We knew that there was industry nearby, but we didn't know there was any pollution problem. Yeah, we were more naive, more thinking everything is heavily regulated. We liked coming to live here because it's nearby the city, nearby Antwerp. It's very practical and we can use our bicycles to go to work and stuff like that. And the second main reason is, like you can see in the backyard, it's very green, it's open, you've got nice views, you're in nature.
The industry component that Jeroen is referring to is 3M, a multinational company whose headquarters are located in St. Paul, Minnesota. You probably know 3M for its flagship product, Post-it notes, the sticky yellow reminders we all use. But 3M is also one of the major producers of per- and polyfluoroalkyl substances, better known as PFAS. If you missed our last episode, here's Jacob de Boer, Emeritus Professor of Environmental Chemistry and Toxicology at the Vrije Universiteit in Amsterdam, explaining what PFAS are and when they were created.
PFAS is fluorinated compounds. So these are synthetic chemicals which contain fluorine. And they are used in several applications, like in fire extinguishers or in glues. But they're also used to make polymers, especially Teflon. The problem is that the compounds are very difficult, if at all, to degrade. So they are very persistent. They are sometimes called forever chemicals. Yeah, it was an American chemist in 1938, I believe, who discovered this polymer. And of course, as a chemist, you think, okay, this is a very nice compound. If you have a normal plastic and you heat it, it's melting. But Teflon is not. It's very stable until 450 degrees. It's very smooth. If you drop a drop of water on it, then all the time there's still a drop of water. It's not absorbing anything. And the same for dirt. Dirt is also, and fat, it's not absorbing to the polymers. And then the first use was actually during the Manhattan Project. That was during the Second World War, the work on the atomic bomb. And they had to store uranium. And they did that in Teflon vessels. And then later on, it was used in the army on tanks. So there was no dirt on the tanks. And only after that, in the 50s, they discovered that it would be a good idea to put it into frying pans so you could fry an egg without any brown crust or everything.
PFAS have many properties that make them useful in a wide range of everyday products. The problem is that soon after their creation, major companies began noticing the dangers of PFAS, particularly their indestructible nature.
Well, the big companies, DuPont and 3M are the main ones, I think. They were aware of that already in the early 60s, if not earlier. But environmental scientists and academic people, they only just started to think about that in the 1990s.
For several decades until 2002, the Belgian site of 3M produced PFOS, one of the almost 10,000 types of PFAS, which is now banned in the European Union. The chemical company was aware that PFOS had been dispersed in the Flemish environment since 1996. Here's Jeroen Van Reeth again.
When you get to know the problem and dig into it, you see that there is really things still wrong with how factories work, how they produce, how they treat their wastewater, how they spill, how they pollute in the air and stuff like that.
In episode 52, we invited you to explore the map of forever pollution to grasp the scale of the PFAS problem in Europe. Zooming in on Zwijndrecht, you'll see a dense cluster of red spots marking known contamination. Closer to 3M, soil tests from 2021 reveal PFAS concentrations of about 39,630 nanograms per kilogram, nearly 5 times higher than the Flemish regulatory threshold for PFAS in soil. PFAS levels in the blood of Zwijndrecht residents were also concerning. Tests conducted in 2021 showed that only 1 in 10 participants had levels of PFOS, a specific type of PFAS, in their blood associated with a low health risk.
They did a blood test with 800 people and only 1 per family could participate. And my girlfriend, Caroline, she participated and she had pretty high levels.
Exposure to forever chemicals may lead to a range of health problems, including reproductive issues, weakened immune function, hormonal disruption, and elevated cholesterol levels. Given these PFAS-related risks, Flemish political and medical authorities introduced a list of no-regrets measures, indications stressing the effects that environmental pollution may have on human health. For families like Jeroen's, living less than 1.5 kilometres from the 3M site, this meant avoiding homegrown eggs and small livestock, avoiding homegrown vegetables if vulnerable, and not using groundwater for drinking, cooking, or washing. For a community like Zwijndrecht, where back gardens open up onto the countryside, these measures were a big shock.
A lot of people that have chickens have put them away. People that have vegetables stopped doing that. Some people just don't mind and keep doing what they are doing.
Jeroen's life also changed. His in-depth research on PFAS not only made him all but an expert on the topic, but also prompted him to form a collective called Zwijndrecht Gezond.
It's emotionally stressful. It's bad news every day, so it's not a good news show, which we are doing for 4 years now. But we try to do it constructively by building up knowledge and trying to get in a conversation on the same level. And that way we can trigger things or ask the right questions that set things in movement.
In addition to his community engagement, Jeroen and his family also had to modify their daily habits.
For 3 years, we didn't drink any tap water, so that was a change. We threw away most of our plastic. We changed pots and pans and stuff like that. So we address not getting PFAS in our blood every day by looking at what we eat, what we use, what tools we use, by regularly cleaning and stuff like that. It's something that you need to notice by not digging in the garden. That's another thing. Behind us, there are fields. When there is a farmer working in the fields, it makes a lot of dust, and we close all windows and stop the airflow from our air system. So things like that. You are busy with it every day, looking at not getting more pollution in your blood.
Jeroen's daughters were also affected by the situation.
They're very aware. Funny story. 2 years ago, when we were at the seaside here in Belgium, our smallest one, she was 5 at that time, was running away from the foam which forms from the sea. And the foam was on the beach, and there was a little wind, so the foam was rolling over the beach. And she was running away. PFAS!
In March 2022, an investigation committee in the Flemish Parliament concluded that 3M was responsible for polluting the region around Zwijndrecht with PFAS. And in July of the same year, the company signed an agreement with the Flemish government, committing to a total of €571 million in remedial actions to minimise PFAS contamination risks. To reduce the amount of PFAS in wastewater, for instance, 3M is using a technology called activated carbon, which we'll discuss later. And to clean contaminated soil, the company is engaging in digging up and replacing the gardens of those living in the red zone.
So the garden will be dug out, and one of the things that we got done from 3M is that they need to do more than just dig out a garden and then put in clean soil and that's it. No. The garden was a beautiful garden. We want a beautiful garden back.
Jeroen's garden is indeed beautiful, with lovely plants, a trampoline, a dining table, and a cosy couch area.
So you can choose just clean soil and a budget, and you can do it on yourself. Or you can choose that your garden is the same as it was, and they will do it and replant everything and stuff like that. Or you can choose for a more environmentally friendly garden. So probably we go for that way. And then there is a garden architect which will make a plan and create a beautiful garden. It will be worth more than it was. And then you've got something to look forward to.
Yeah.
And that was the thing. You don't want just to have the people have a mess and costs and then bye-bye, we did our thing. No, you want to have the people have something to look forward to have a better end situation.
Jeroen and his neighbours have been waiting for their new gardens for 3 years, yet no work has started. The landfill where their contaminated soil is meant to be taken is already full. The current plan involves washing the soil to remove PFAS and reusing the least contaminated portions in other projects and forms. The case of Zwijndrecht is emblematic of the challenges surrounding PFAS. It highlights the impact these forever chemicals can have on people's lives, the responsibility of corporations, and the role politics must play in addressing pollution. But Zwijndrecht also underscored another crucial point: the actions that can be taken to reduce PFAS dispersal and clean up existing contamination, and the challenges involved in these processes. To better understand techniques used to make forever chemicals less persistent, we spoke with 2 experts. Hans-Peter Arp, Professor of Environmental Chemistry at the Norwegian University of Science and Technology and expert at the Norwegian Geotechnical Institute, and Madeleine Bussemaker, Associate Professor of Chemical Engineering at the University of Surrey in the UK. Arp specialises in soil remediation techniques, which can be classified into 2 groups, ex situ and in situ.
Now, ex situ just means that you are removing it from where it is and bringing it somewhere else to treat it. And that is the most classical type, such as just landfilling. So the simplest solution is to bring the PFAS contaminated soil to a landfill. The excavated soil can be brought to a facility where they have some type of treatment, like soil washing or something similar.
Other researchers point out that ex situ techniques can be quite inefficient. Rain falling on landfills can cause water to leach through the piles, allowing untreated PFAS to spread into the environment. Arp is also sceptical about digging up and dumping the contaminated soil.
These are harmful techniques to the environment because you're actually moving the soil somewhere else, which is a large burden to CO2. It's landfilling, it's moving the problem. So it's a very inefficient approach. Now, in some cases, it might be absolutely necessary. Like if there's a lot of children playing in the area, maybe you have to get it. So to me, I would like these landfilling or moving of soils in general to be the last resort. But sometimes, of course, the last resort is necessary.
Conversely, in situ remediation techniques do not require moving the contaminated soil, but may still be problematic.
These are techniques where they try to remediate soil without excavating it too much, or maybe just slightly, such as introducing materials that will help mitigate that. And examples of that applied to PFAS include mixing in things like activated carbon or biochar into the soil. This will not destroy the PFAS, but it will reduce its mobility and exposure because it acts like a sponge to the PFAS. And so that will prevent it from going up in the plants or down to the groundwater. For other types of contaminants, they will also try to do things like add, with the in situ family of remediation techniques, they might add some bacteria, fungus, or maybe some nanoparticles to try to degrade in situ. But in my opinion, even though these are being researched for PFAS, they will not have any effects because PFAS is too persistent and resistant to such accelerated degradation techniques in situ.
Water remediation techniques aren't easy to deal with either. Here's Bussemaker outlining the most common ones.
One of the common technologies used for this is called an activated carbon, where the water flows through an activated carbon and the PFAS sticks to the carbon. Eventually, the carbon gets full of PFAS, and then this must be dealt with in some way. So the carbon can either be regenerated or reactivated or just disposed of. Other treatments include filtration, so different kinds of filtration, which work in a similar way to this, where you have some kind of filtrate or solid where the PFAS sticks to the solid, and you can either regenerate this or destroy it.
We mentioned activated carbon before when discussing the measures used by 3M to remediate PFAS pollution. Activated carbon works like a sponge with its pores trapping PFAS molecules. The issue with this process is that, just like a sponge can drip water, activated carbon can release some PFAS back into the environment. That's why careful monitoring is essential. For now, we've looked at methods to reduce PFAS contamination in soil and water, but can forever chemicals actually be completely destroyed? How can PFAS be eliminated from activated carbon or from soil that can't be fully cleaned?
Destruction is often done via a high temperature incineration to break the compounds down. But of course, this can be very expensive because you're using high temperatures. So normally with these destruction technologies, you would have first a removal step. So say the activated carbon or the filtration or the foam fractionation. These all produce a concentrate, so a PFAS kind of waste stream, you might say, that then gets sent for destruction. So destruction technologies include electrolysis, senolysis, photolysis, lots of S's. Essentially, different ways to break the chemical down into safe compounds is what you want.
Destroying PFAS requires extreme environmental conditions, like high heat or intense electrical exposure. The problem is that generating these conditions demands a huge amount of energy and therefore money. Journalists behind the Map of Forever Pollution also worked on the Forever Lobbying Project, an investigation into how costly PFAS cleanup is and how the chemical industry is lobbying against a PFAS ban at the EU level. According to their estimate, removing PFAS in Europe could cost up to €100 billion per year. Now, we don't want to sound naive or downplay the challenges of PFAS cleanup, but it's important to know that research on this is moving forward. To create this episode, we spoke with many experts, more than the ones you've heard, all working on ways to make PFAS remediation and destruction more efficient and affordable. For instance, Norwegian expert Hans-Peter Arp is developing a technology to safely dispose of plants used to absorb PFAS in contaminated soil. Bussemaker co-founded Mantisonics, a spin-off company focused on destroying PFAS using sound waves. So things are moving, and we'll explore these possibilities even further in the next episode of Euronews Tech Talks. We'll have two conversations, one with scientists developing possible alternatives to PFAS, and another with a co-founder of a company removing PFAS from water. But before we leave you to the rest of your day or night, we'd like to finish with some words from Jeroen Van Reeth. After listening to his story, our producer asked him why he decided to stay in Zwijndrecht.
From the beginning, we were looking at other places to live. But you probably have seen all these PFAS maps, who had a PFAS map of Europe. Okay, Flanders is a big red spot, but the other spots aren't that red because there aren't that many measurements in other spots. So we are living in the most measured worldwide spot. So if you move where to, because PFAS is spread everywhere, Are you going to move to somewhere where there's maybe a dumping ground with PFAS on it? Or maybe there's a factory that has PFAS in their wastewater and nobody knows about it. Or maybe it's like TFA, PFAS in agriculture, products that they use and spray around. So where shall we live?
I'm your host, James Thomas. This series was created by Marta Rodriguez Martinez. This episode was written and produced by Alice Carnevali, with assistant podcast producer Lauren Walker. The theme music is by Leo Lebrun. Sound editing and sound mixing is by Johan Breton. Our editor-in-chief is Niaz Samadizada. Additional thanks to Professor Manuela Antonelli and Johan van Leeuwen. Their voices do not appear in the podcast, but they kindly dedicated their time to help our team navigate the technical remediation techniques for PFAS contamination in soil and water. If you aren't already, you can listen to this series on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Castbox, or wherever you get your podcasts. If you're enjoying the podcast, please consider leaving us a positive review and, of course, sharing it. Thanks for listening.